Okay, so what we have on the top here is the real EL zone on a smallHD monitor, and on the bottom here is the PortKeys BM5 IV WR with its new CineNorm OS and its new log false color exposure tool, which as you can see is very similar to the EL zone system. It's the new PortKeys BM5 IV WR, and we're gonna dive into it today.
Like your TV show, what is it called?
DOGTIMES. PortKeys did send this to me, and we're going to be just checking it out. This is the Tilt the Nucleus. Use this on my FX6. As you'll see, I have the FX6 here. This PortKeys monitor does have this UART port on the back here, and that is for Tilt the Nucleus Nano or the Tilt the Nucleus M. However, if you take a very close look at this, that is a male port, and all of your cables that come with your Tilt the Nucleus devices are male to male. So these are not actually going to work. You're gonna have to buy a special cable. You're gonna have to try to find one that is female to male, because the ones that come with your Tilt the Nucleus M or the Nano, unless they've started shipping them differently in the past couple of years, which they most definitely could have. I have the older Tilt the Max. Either way, just keep in mind to use this to pull focus via the Tilt the Nucleus system, you will need some sort of male to female adapter cable. When I first started reviewing these monitors, probably 2019, something like that, maybe even 2018, the very first BM5 back in my Pocket 4K days. And you'll see here in the top down, if I can do this correctly without having a brain aneurysm, you'll notice that, yeah, this is pretty similar. You know, it looks exactly like it did. I mean, there's a few updates here. You'll notice that I do like they changed the placement of the antenna. Now it sits really nice and flush in there. I like that. I appreciate that. The top now has a little menu scroll wheel with a exit button there. I believe that's new. It looks like a tally lamp right there. It's still the same aluminum alloy chassis. Pretty nice monitor overall. As I said 5 or 6 years ago, this is definitely PortKeys' version of something like the 503 Ultra Bright, because this monitor has 2000 nits of brightness. It is only a 1080p resolution. However, it can accept a 4K 60 frames per second signal via HDMI. So here on the left side, you do have HDMI, full-size HDMI in and out with a headphone jack. And on the back, you have in and out SDI. Now the SDI is old school, it's only 3G, okay, which means it's limited to 1080p signal and only up to 50 frames per second, okay? But however, you can cross convert from SDI to HDMI. So I know a lot of guys are always asking about that, you know, because of different wireless transmitters and things like that. So yes, and they do cross convert back and forth. Now, the biggest thing with the BM5 back in the day was having wireless control of your Blackmagic design cameras. That's still a thing. Unfortunately, you have to have a cable for controlling things like an FX6 or an FX9. That's what this remote port on the bottom here is for, which is basically a mini USB to what you would need for the FX6 is like what looks like a headphone jack. It's the little remote port on the back here. It's actually very similar to the one that they use for the grip here. But on the other hand, if you have something like the FX3 or the FX30, you can control via Wi-Fi. So I'm gonna leave a link where you can go check out PortKeys' website, and they built a really awesome graph showing what cameras from what manufacturers can support Wi-Fi or Bluetooth wireless control, and then ones that you would need a cable for. And then on top of that, it shows you what exactly you can control, whether it's, you know, through a cable or the Wi-Fi or Bluetooth. So that's pretty awesome. Again, the link for that will be down below. Now, at the time of the recording of this, which is November 20th, 2024. It is not yet available for sale, but it will be available on B&H. Again, links down below, affiliate links obviously, but that is the #1 way to support the channel at no extra cost to anyone. All right, if you're a fan, if you want to support the channel, whatever, but obviously the easiest way to support the channel by buying nothing is just tapping that subscribe button. All right, it will be selling for $749 US. It does have a 1000:1 contrast ratio, which is something I appreciate. It does take MPF style batteries, as you can tell. They have added this little PortKeys logo here, which is like on a little rubberized grip. And I think that's just a really nice way probably to help, you know, keep the MPF battery snug. What's included in their little Pelican case here, you'll see what they include. You get an additional little antenna nub here. as well as they include their own DTAP cable. So if we keep looking at this thing, there is the port for their DTAP, but also on the bottom here, you have a 2-pin LEMO for power. So that is new as well, which is awesome. Bear with me here. I know this is really weird framing. I'm in very tight quarters. As you guys know, I have a little documentary project going on that we started working on back in January. So we've been primarily on the road, but right now we're in some spaces where I have no space whatsoever. So I know the framing is weird, but we will be hooking this bad boy up to the FX6 and looking at what's the newest of this PortKeys monitor, which is their new operating software called CineNorm. Now, it is definitely their version of smallHD's OS. Okay, so with the CineNorm, you can create up to 7 custom pages, and we'll look at all of that. And they also have their own version of EL Zone, and we'll get into all of that as well. If you don't know what EL Zone is, I've done plenty of video on that. I'll leave links to those videos down below. How about this? We'll create a special playlist just for this video if you are new here, or if you just want a nice fresh recap on anything that I'm talking about of my past videos. You get 3 quarter 20s here, and they do have area locking points on them. There are 2 vents that I can find. There's one under here, right here, and then there's other vents right here. So pretty good monitor. A 10-bit monitor, so that is the new thing that's going around now. It's technically 8-bit and then 2 bits in asterisks. Yeah, not true 10-bit. It is 8-bit, 2 bits are FRC, okay? So, of course, on the bottom here, too, you have a USB port that is for, obviously, updating the firmware and importing LUTs. Let's tap into the FX6 now. I do have it on here. I guess I could use their DTAP cable, but I'll show you what I generally use when I use monitors. What was the last shoot we did with this? I guess it would have been the Nisi little shoot that we did. I think. I don't know, guys. I can't keep up with it. But if you haven't seen the video for the new Nisi Athena tuned lenses, what are you doing? That's a video with some worthy content. Of course, no one wants to watch any time I shoot something. They just want to watch me talk about shit, regardless of popular opinions. Okay, so let's pop this in here. Okay, so this is the cool part here. So this is a voltage regulated dummy MPF battery to DTAP. I use these on all my monitors. I love how streamlined it is because these are not regulated, not to my knowledge, so I just don't really use whatever people provide. I always use this. Some people might have their own opinions of this because it's just made from some weird company called Zite, but you'll notice it does light up green to let you know you have proper voltage. You can monitor the voltage with the little OLED screen on the back of the actual dummy battery. I don't know, I use it all the time. It works. It will trip if something is going awry. It'll help you from, blowing up your monitors. But again, this is only a 3G SDI, but keep in mind, the SDI of the FX6 is 12G, and certainly all of your Komodo X, which, by the way, this monitor is total wireless control of all of the red DSMC3 bodies. So I've done a video on that with the older versions of these BM5s showing how to control the Komodo OG. Again, I'll leave links to those down below, but it is very, very good wireless control, by the way. We have it plugged into power. Now I'll just grab my SDI. Before I plug in the SDI, I am going to power the monitor on. So when we do this, we should be able to see what pops up immediately, which will be the CineNorm logo, I believe. Takes a little bit for it to power on, and yes, there it is, CineNorm. So this is their new look. This is their new OS, okay? Camera's gonna get loud in my microphone there. I'm just gonna go SDI here, SDI in. Actually, this is what's nice about SDI as well. You can always just make any cable longer. Can't really do that with HDMI. Okay, so now we have it connected to SDI via the FX6, waiting for the signal, and there you go. We have a very boring shot of the color chart there. Okay, but this is a great way for us to see what's going on. I'm going to tap this and bring down the brightness so I don't blow out the overhead camera here. Now we're looking at something we can handle. So you'll notice that's a new thing here, the newest thing with the CineNorm OS. We tap this, and now we have very quickly, control of the brightness, right? We just showed that, very intuitive tapping. The fan, so now we can control the fan level, which will also obviously affect the noise of the fan. We tap that again, and then here we have the volume. So that's kind of interesting, very quick there. This little chain is to connect Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, wired camera control, and for the motor. And here into the settings is where you can really get in here, image configuration. Because something about this monitor is it does come factory calibrated, like all the monitors nowadays. However, you do have the option to load in a special 3D LUT, and then you can calibrate this yourself with an X-Rite probe. So that's kind of cool. You have that option. X-Rite probes are not cheap, but that is an option, right? The image configuration, so you have backlight, contrast, chroma, sharpness, tint, and the color temperature of the actual monitor, or you can do log input. So now this is where you can map it for their version of the EL zone. They have slightly adjusted a form of their false color, which we'll look at, and it is able to directly read off of the log image, and that's pretty much how EL Zone works, right? You do have to dial in the correct color pipeline into EL Zone for it to adjust the stops of exposure correctly or appropriately. I've done lots of videos on the EL Zone. I'm a blue collar guy, as you've probably figured out by now if you're new here, so I'm not like the scientific dude, but I have done demos of the EL Zone, and even the engineers at smallHD said I did a pretty good job at it. Okay, so again, I'll have a complete playlist to all the videos I'm referring to down below. So while we're in here, we're going to adjust the log input of this. We will change this to Sony, all right, S-Gamut, S-Gamut Cine, because I tend to leave mine on sgamut3.cine, I believe it's called, and the curve is S-Log3. All right, so there we go. So I did want to include this because I know I'll get asked. People will want to know what log profiles are available in this, and we have Red, Arri, Sony, Canon, Panasonic, and Blackmagic and Fujifilm. So that's nice. Now I've inputted it. So now we'll be able to tap in and look at their new false color log. I guess we'll call theirs log false color. We don't want to call it EL Zone because it's not EL Zone, right? Image Flip is in here. PortKeys did send me this monitor to review it, and they did not include the cable that I need to control the FX6 via the monitor. So I won't be able to show all that, but I did already do a full demo of how you can wirelessly control cameras such as the Red Komodo video down below. System configuration, here's where you can go in here and change some things like gesture zooming and all of that. SD tally, so that's kind of cool. SDI tally, that's kind of cool. And this is where you can go in and change the record button position and the firmware. So this also, if you guys recall from my older videos of these PortKeys monitors, they do have image capture, much like the smallHD monitors. But what's nice about the smallHD monitors, they actually save a very high-res JPEG, and they store it to the internal SD card. Still now, here we are, years later, and PortKeys still hasn't figured out how to do that, how to put an SD card in this monitor, unfortunately. So yeah, that's a problem. It's like, what's the point of having image capture? I guess it's for just on the day of doing a recall of it. But, you know, a lot of the camera operators that I know, they like to do image capture saved to the internal SD card, and then they have kind of high-res images of the project for all kinds of different reasons to do that, right? Maybe for your DIT or whatever. But so you're not going to get that kind of a high-end product out of this PortKeys monitor, right? It's just for maybe aligning a shot from the day prior or something like that. All of our external device connections, so this is kind of awesome. So when you tap the battery, you really get a nice layout here of your external device connections, your Bluetooth, your Wi-Fi, your SDI, everything that it's sending in. I can quickly look here and look, okay, it is sending a 10-bit signal, it's log. I can check the color gamut and the curve, and I can see that my LUT is off. Okay, let's tap this little thing down here. Here we can change our peaking settings. We can change our zebra settings. We have our picture-in-picture settings here. If I had two cameras connected to this, it would show me a side-by-side. And this is really cool for people that are shooting horizontal and vertical, right? So you could see this other side here would be available for the vertical image. And then obviously in here we can build more pages. So you have your exposure, your waveform, your monitoring, your color mixing, camera control, image configurators, image config, dual screen, and focus. Okay, but what I'm most interested in, because I'm more into lighting and exposure, let's go in here to exposure, and let's see how this works out here. So we'll turn on our false color, and the style we want is log. Okay, so what we have on the top here is the real EL Zone on a smallHD monitor, and on the bottom here is the PortKeys. Okay, so for right now, we are exposing for the exposure charts on the top here. So right now, just pay attention. These are both properly exposed for middle gray according to the chart. So middle gray with the PortKeys is this interesting I think it's like a sky blue, baby blue color. I don't know, maybe it's gray to your guys' eyes, but it doesn't look real true gray the way the middle gray looks on the EL zone. And that's why also you notice the black bar is truly black. It's -6 under on each one. And then for our white chip chart here, we're sitting about 3 stops over on both the PortKeys and the smallHD EL zone. Okay, but now we don't want to actually expose for middle gray. We want to pay attention to the skin tones. So I'm going to turn off this real quick so you can just see what we're working with here. So now we're just back onto a normal preview page on both of these. You'll notice how I was able to just quickly slide through each one, much like you can with the smallHD, and we will be creating our own pages here in a minute, but let's just stay on track here. So if we're looking at this and you don't know about charts, by the way, I've done a whole video on how to expose and use a color chart, but this second row from the top, that is actually our skin tone chart, okay? So let's try to dial in our exposure using both the exposure tools that each of these monitors offer. Again, that's real EL zone on the smallHD and what PortKeys is calling log false color, okay? Because we have mapped this to the proper log curve of the Sony FX6 right now. If we want to try to expose for this chip chart here, and we're going off of the chart that both the PortKeys and the EL zone offers, and again, I've done full videos on how to read these things, but just real quick, light skin tones are in this half a stop and full stop over. And the PortKeys has a nice little chart on here as well. So if we want to try to kind of get our exposure for skin tones before our talent gets in, this is a really quick way to do this if you don't have a stand-in with matching skin tones or something like that. It's a very nerdy way to quickly do it. So what we can do right now is using just the iris of the lens here, I'm going to start trying to expose something for the skin tone chart. Now keep in mind, I don't care about middle gray. I'm never exposing for middle gray. This crap about people commenting saying, oh, it's underexposed, it's overexposed. No, it's not. First of all, that is all subjective to whoever the cinematographer is. You can underexpose, you can overexpose all day long. Because if everyone was doing quote-unquote perfect exposure, which would be middle gray, everything would be flat, okay? That's the reality of the situation. If you want a dynamic image, the first thing to do is to understand exposure. For people saying that you can't underexpose and you can't overexpose, that's crap. Again, it's artistic, subjective choices, but also, we all know cameras have a dynamic range, okay? That's the whole point of dynamic range, to push and pull the image to your liking. I've done a whole video on how you can understand and decide what ISO you want to shoot at dependent on the project. I take it right out of the ASC manual. Again, I'll leave that link down below. Creating a whole playlist for this video of all the videos I'm referencing in today's video. So what I'm doing right now is I'm rocking the iris on the lens, and you'll notice both the exposure tools are changing on each monitor. So what I'm primarily looking for here, again, is this skin tone, the second row from the top. That is our skin tone color chips right there. Now, again, if you need a quick reference, you can bounce out of this and see, okay, you know, it goes darker to light, if you're seeing this here on the monitor. Darker skin tones all the way to the left, all the way up to super pale skin tones to the right, okay? So going off of our false color tool down here, we know that half a stop, one stop over. But as you'll notice, the colors are different. The true EL zone has this kind of pale yellow color, and whereas this PortKeys log false color has this kind of weird pink color. And I don't even know if that's even what it is, because I have a hue deficiency. So it's hard for me to differentiate the colors on this log false color of the PortKeys. Whereas here on the EL zone, it kind of makes more sense for my eyeballs. Something I realized after the fact is you can actually change these colors to anything you like. So you just go in here and tap edit, and then you'll notice in here you can completely change all of these stops of exposure, which is pretty awesome. Lots of colors to choose from. Okay, so here we go. I'm just gonna start dialing in, and what we wanna do, maybe we'll pick a skin tone that we wanna go for. Let's just go for this one right here. It's the one that kind of is, it's almost in the middle. So it's not super dark, it's not super pale, it's just right here under this blue chip chart right here. Okay, I'm talking about the third one in from the right, okay? That's the one I want to expose for. So if I want to do that off of this EL zone, I'm gonna look at this one and we'll come down and see how well this is accurate in a minute, but let's pay attention to the EL zone right now. I'm dialing in for this one just to maybe be about a half a stop to 1 stop over for skin tones of that color. And here we go, just using my iris for this example. We don't need to overthink this. So right about there, right? So that right about there is where these particular skin tones are properly exposed. This darker one is middle gray. This one is actually about a stop under, which is perfect for super dark skin tones, whereas this one is clipping out. But again, we're not exposing for that in this particular scene, but if we were, we certainly wouldn't want it to be 4 stops over, or maybe that's only 2 stops over. It's hard for me to tell the difference between 2 stops and 4 stops because they're so closely resembling each other. It just looks like one has more saturation than the other. Again, I have a hue deficiency, so bear that in mind. So let's jump down here to this one and see what this one, now this one is, I can tell right away that yes, the one we were aiming for is a half a stop over using the log false color of the port keys. And the other ones seem to be matching up okay, right? This one is middle gray. It's also middle gray up here. This one seems to be 1 to 2 stops under. That's exactly what the EL zone is. And this one also is showing 4 to 3 stops over on the one all the way to the right, and that's what's going on with our EL zone. So this PortKeys log false color is very, very close to the true EL zone system of exposure monitoring. Again, if you don't know what this is, if you don't know what you're looking at, I don't have time to break this all down for you. You're gonna have to go watch the other videos that I've already done. Welcome to the channel. Be sure to tap that subscribe button so you're always, are up to snuff with the videos I put out. It just would take me too long to deep dive into everything here, guys. So I will leave the playlist down below, but what I will say is this is hands down the best way to monitor exposure. I've only been using EL Zone for, I don't know how long it's been out now, since it dropped. Again, I was one of the first ones to demo the EL Zone, so that's how long I've been using EL Zone, guys. And to see that you now have a budget option for this in these PortKeys monitor, this is awesome. So yeah, this is looking really good. I'm holding this to demonstrate this, and it is getting pretty hot in my hands. So with that being said, let's pop over here, and I have it on the lowest brightness because to help out with this overhead camera. Let's pop out in here and I'll turn this fan up to kind of cool it off a little bit. Hold this next to the microphone. Obviously that's right on top of the lav. So this is how loud it is, no voice isolation, nothing on. It is on full blast. And I'm very close to it though, right? Maybe we'll jump to the audio of this above camera, see if you can hear it. Keep in mind though, they're both running. The FX6 is running, the fan on that is running, and also the PortKeys is running at the same time. So there's a lot of fans happening in here right now, unfortunately. But it's pretty loud. I don't feel this one on the side doing anything, but I can feel the one on the back. Yeah, so she's pretty loud. We can kind of turn it down a little bit. And now at that setting, which is about, like a quarter on, it is silent. So we have it on, but it's like dead silent. So if you hear anything right now, it's definitely the FX6. You obviously have these monitoring things in here, image overlay, so that's what we talked about before, image capture, your guides are gonna be in here. So that's our tools, right? So this is one page, right? So now if we want to go to slide over, custom pages. Okay, so here's where we do this. So you'll notice we swipe down and now we can add a new page. So our new page can be something maybe just exposure, right? So there's our exposure page, and we can add tools to this, right? We can lay them out differently, right? And we can even add more to this, okay? So now when we swipe over, now we're just swiping between each page here. So let's swipe down. Let's add another custom page. What if I wanted another exposure page that was just EL Zone? We can turn all of that off. And now I can make this one all about my log false exposure, false color, right? So now I'm going to map this all in here, log, tooltip on. All right, so now when I navigate through here, I have my scopes, which is the vector scope, the waveform, the RGB parade. I slide over one more, and here's my log exposure charts. And then back to the main page, which I have this stuff over here on the side, but I don't really have anything turned on. This could just be like my previewer page. Maybe what I can do here is add a LUT. So I could do that in monitoring, I imagine. Yes, so this could be, I could put a LUT in here. It does have all of these LUTs built in. So hopefully you're able to see this. There's Canon, Fujifilm, Nikon, Panasonic, and we do have Sony. They got a few different options for Sony here. So we'll try this vintage 709. Okay, so I don't know, pretty wild, super crunchy LUT here, but we're just saying, like what if our first page was where our LUT is, our second page is our scopes, our third page is our log false color exposure, and let's keep going. So then let's add another page here, and now this one can be maybe focusing, right? So now this is our focusing, and obviously we can go in here and completely adjust this if we wanted to. What color do we want? Do we want grayscale? We want color edge. I do like color edge, obviously. The touch screen is a little weird every now and then. I'm not able to actually adjust my grayscale level for some reason. Here I can change my sensitivity of it though. We'll just put it in the middle. It's not letting me adjust the grayscale level or the peak threshold. I'm not able to tap a lot of these, unfortunately. I wanted to change the grayscale level. It's not letting me tap it. I was wanting to change the peak threshold, not letting me tap that. The brightness, I can adjust that, but this is just for peaking, so we don't want to mess with this too bad. The contrast, it will let me change that. And what I will do is like push the contrast up just a tad, and then what I'll do is jack the sensitivity up just a tad. But I wish I could change the grayscale level and the peak threshold, but it's not letting me do that. I'm gonna pull some of that contrast back a little bit. All right, yeah, so there's our peaking screen, our log exposure screen, our scope screen, and our main screen with the LUT. Okay, so now we have 4 screens up all the time. Simple to swipe through those. And let's see, let's add another page. So, you know, you could just go on and you can have up to 7 pages, right? So this is our framing page. So what this means is, you know, this is to look at different things here, different frames, so we can change what kind of guides we want. You can completely adjust horizontal, vertical, create your own guides, which is cool, right? And then, yeah, you can just scroll through all your pages. Again, you can have up to 7 pages in here with their new CineNorm. So there's obviously some adjustments that need to be made with that touchscreen. For some reason, it's not letting me change all those options. So that's a little strange. It's pretty hot in my hands. I'm sitting here holding it, and the fan is only on like a quarter. Let me jack it back up. I'm gonna just set it down. It's getting really warm in my hands. It does get hot, but you know, so do my smallHD monitors. Monitors get hot. It's 2000 nits of brightness, even though I do have it on literally the lowest setting, mainly to help out the overhead camera here. Hopefully it helped. Sorry for the quality of this video, guys. It's not ideal, but you know, I'm doing the best I can because you know, we're kind of in between right now. We actually are getting ready to go back on the road. And after nearly a year, I'm so close to getting the first episode of Local Calls out. Local Calls is my documentary street photography channel. Be on the lookout for that. I have been putting out reels, but I have been starting to post photos on the Local Calls Instagram, as well as we are getting ready for that first episode. So if you are a huge fan, supporter of the channel, do me a favor, subscribe to the Local Calls YouTube channel. Follow Local Calls on Instagram. It's completely different. It's nothing like this. It's all documentary style, right? It's nothing about reviews. It's not talking about gear. It's not any, my face isn't even on the camera. It's all about documentary style. And it's not just photography, it's video. It's actually, the first episode is a lot. It's very video heavy. A lot of video heavy because I even shot 8mm. I didn't have the FX6 back then when I started shooting that episode. Again, you know, I started shooting it back in January. Just now getting around to almost getting the edit done. We were on the road for the whole summer. We traveled 11,000 miles, 14 different states, and then the RV busted up. So we had to sell the RV, just got a van. That's getting all overhauled at the mechanic, and we will be back on the road soon, jumping back into that documentary. So I'm like, damn, if we're going out for chapter 2 of this doc, I need to start getting something out on the YouTube and the Instagram. So that's finally happening. That's just for the true diehards of the channel, just to give you some heads up on that. This monitor, What is my take on it? It's only 749 bucks, right? So I will say that if you compare that to, you know, some of its competitors out there, I think it's a great deal for what you get. I think it's cool that they have their own version of EL Zone in here. You guys know I'm a huge user and fan of the EL Zone system. So this is the new wave, right? So obviously PortKeys have figured out how to do it, how to, you know, feed it the correct log signal, and then obviously transcode that into stops of exposure. I just wanted to give my first impressions of it because that to me is most important, because when it comes to monitors, you know, monitors are monitors, right? I mean, this thing is aluminum alloy, it's 2000 nits, right? I've certainly put PortKeys monitors through their paces in real world use in the past. My older cameras like the Pocket 4K and the Red Komodo. So you've seen that. I don't have any questions about their durability and their reliability. I haven't had any issues with PortKeys monitors, so it's not really so much about that to me anymore as it is really seeing what kind of improvements they've made, if any, and kind of really giving a true first impressions. It's not my first rodeo with these PortKeys monitors, because I know a lot of people are like, oh, you know, you didn't even use it for like a month or whatever. I don't have to, right? I don't have to use these PortKeys monitors for a long extended amount of time anymore. I know what they're capable of, and I know the reliability, I know their durability. For me, that's not a question anymore, right? That's all I'm trying to say. So that's why it wasn't that kind of review. 749 bucks, links down below. Best way to support the channel at no extra charge to anyone. Best way to support the show is just smashing the subscribe button. Thank you all for the support, and let me know what you think about this PortKeys BM5 Mark IV WR. The only thing that I am aware of that I find a little annoying is not, you know, some of the touchscreen isn't always responsive, as you saw. And that menu thing is a little glitchy with getting back to the full menu of the settings menu. Other than that, it's cool. She's loud, but it's cool. We'll see you in the next one. That's a wrap.
Thank you.
Doesn't matter who we are. What matters is our plan. No one cared who I was till I put on the mask.
I am